On Christmas Eve, when the world was wrapped in lights and laughter, I learned a terrifying truth. Sometimes the man in the red suit isn't Santa at all, and he never forgets the children who see his real face on Christmas Eve. When the world was wrapped in lights and laughter, I learned a terrifying truth. Sometimes the man in the red suit isn't Santa at all, and he never forgets the children who see his real face. I was 8 years old that night. Our small town in Minnesota was covered in thick snow, the streets glowing with warm yellow lights, and every house decorated with wreaths and plastic reindeer. Inside our home, the fireplace crackled. My mother hummed softly while wrapping the last gifts, and my father read quietly in his chair. It was the kind of Christmas people dream about. But I couldn't sleep. My little sister Emily was snoring softly in the bed across from mine, but I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. I had one thought burning in my mind. Tonight, I'm going to see Santa for real. I crept out of bed, careful not to wake Emily. The wooden stairs groaned under my small feet as I tiptoed down. The living room smelled of pine and cinnamon. The Christmas tree glowed with red and gold lights, and beneath it, wrapped boxes sparkled like treasure. And then I heard it. A heavy thump, followed by a dragging sound, came from the chimney. My heart raced. I crouched behind the couch, peeking toward the fireplace. That's when I saw him. A figure dressed in red slid down the chimney, his movements jerky, unnatural. His boots hit the stone floor with a sickening crack, as if bones had snapped. He straightened up slowly, brushing off soot. His red coat was torn, the fur trim stained dark in places that didn't look like ash. My excitement froze into fear. He wasn't round and jolly like the Santa in the mall. He was tall, lean, with arms that seemed too long. His beard was uneven, wiry, like tangled cobwebs. And when he turned toward the tree, the firelight revealed his face. His eyes weren't kind and twinkling. They were hollow, black pits. His smile stretched too wide, showing jagged, yellow teeth. I clamped my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. He reached into a sack slung over his shoulder, pulling out toys, but they weren't new. They looked old, broken, some with missing eyes, others with rusted edges. He placed them carefully under the tree, humming in a low, guttural voice that made the air feel heavy. And then he stopped. Slowly, his head tilted. His hollow eyes scanned the room. I shrank further behind the couch, praying he hadn't seen me. But then his voice cut through the silence. "I see you, little one." My blood turned cold. I tried to stay still, but my body shook uncontrollably. He sniffed the air like an animal, his long fingers twitching. So curious, so awake. I wanted to scream for my parents, but no sound came out. He crouched low, crawling toward my hiding spot, his hands scraping the wooden floor. The only thing that saved me was Emily. She stirred upstairs, coughing in her sleep. The sound made him pause. His head snapped toward the ceiling, and after a moment, he slithered back to the fireplace, climbing up in unnatural jerks. The last thing I heard was his voice, whispering from inside the chimney, "I'll be back for you." I ran upstairs, jumped into bed, and pulled the covers over my head, shaking so badly, I thought I'd wake Emily. Somehow, I fell asleep. By morning, the gifts under the tree were bright, new, and perfectly wrapped, not the broken toys I had seen. My parents smiled as we unwrapped presents, never knowing what I had witnessed. For years, I told myself it was a dream, just a child's imagination on Christmas Eve. But deep down, I knew better. And now, 15 years later, on Christmas Eve, I've started hearing the same dragging sound in the chimney again. 15 years later, I thought I had left that nightmare behind. I was no longer the wide-eyed child hiding behind a couch. I was 23, living alone in a small apartment on the edge of town, trying to build a quiet life. Christmas had lost its magic years ago. I barely decorated, just a tiny tree on the coffee table. But this Christmas Eve, the old dread returned. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. I poured myself a cup of coffee, trying to ignore the unease gnawing at me. Yet every creak of the walls, every whistle of the storm, reminded me of that night long ago. Then it happened. A deep thump echoed from the chimney. My blood ran cold. The sound was exactly as I remembered, heavy, dragging, unnatural. My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped my cup. I told myself it couldn't be real. That memory was a childhood delusion. But then came the voice, low, rasping, familiar. I told you I'd be back. The mug shattered on the floor. I stumbled backward, eyes locked on the dark fireplace. Ash fell like snow, and then a long, pale hand emerged from the shadows. Its nails black and broken. Slowly, the figure pulled itself out. He looked the same as he had 15 years ago, but worse. His red coat was more tattered, the fur crusted with something dark. His beard hung in filthy clumps, and his hollow eyes gleamed with hunger. "You've grown," he hissed, his smile stretching too wide. "But I never forget my children." I scrambled for the door, but before I could reach it, he moved. Despite his jerky, unnatural limbs, he was fast, impossibly fast. He blocked my path, crouching low, his head tilted at an inhuman angle. "Don't run. You stayed awake for me once. Now you'll keep me company forever." My heart pounded so violently, I thought it would burst. I grabbed the first thing I could, a broken piece of the mug, and slashed at him. The shard cut his coat, but instead of blood, a black, tar-like liquid seeped out, hissing as it touched the floor. He didn't flinch. He laughed. The lights in my apartment flickered, then died. In the glow of the dying fireplace, his shape seemed to swell, stretching taller, broader, his shadow filling the room. His sack thudded onto the floor, writhing as if something inside struggled to get out. "Want to see a gift?" he asked, his voice like cracking ice. The sack split open, and I saw faces. Children's faces, pale, lifeless, their eyes wide and empty. Their mouths moved silently, as if screaming without sound. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. "This is what happens to the ones who peek," he whispered. I bolted for the window, shoving it open despite the freezing air. Without thinking, I hurled myself out onto the snow-covered street below. Pain shot through my legs, but I forced myself to run. Behind me, laughter echoed, deep, guttural, shaking the night. Neighbors' windows glowed with warmth, but none opened. No one heard me scream. I didn't stop until I reached the woods at the edge of town. I collapsed beneath the trees, gasping, praying it was over. But in the distance, above the howl of the storm, I heard the jingling of bells, slow, deliberate, drawing closer. I never went back to that apartment. I left town the next day, leaving behind everything I owned. But no matter where I go, Christmas brings the same sound. The dragging, the thump in the chimney, the faint jingling in the snow. And every year, I know he's coming closer. Because Santa never forgets the children who see his true face.